At some point, every developer has done one of those, if not all of them. They have sent an environmental file or secrets through messaging apps to another colleague. They have spent a lot of time with that colleague to set up their development environment just because secrets needed configuring, or even a server. You spend a lot of time setting up a server and find out that the variables were not set correctly. And that is a pain. Managing environmental files is a pain. And Varlock is proposing to change that. And I can say that I've been using it for the last couple of weeks at least, and it has been a very, very good experience. So I'm going to show you that. And what prompted me to do this, actually, one, I found out about Varlock in a Syntax FM podcast episode. So I recommend you listening to that. But for me, the most pain point has been twofold. One is that with using worktrees, especially with Codex, I've been using the Codex app, and I mentioned that I have created a script to just copy environmental variables or environmental files into worktrees because those are not tracked by Git. And because of that, environmental files are not copied by default. So I have scripts for that, or I used to have scripts for that, I should say. And the other thing is, with AI and creating lots of different small projects, pet projects here and there, whenever I set up a new server, I need to set up the environmental variables on that server. And that's also annoying. So Varlock helps with all of that. And I'm going to show you how that works today. I have a small project. It's very small. The only purpose of this project is to help us manage this .env.example file here. So I'm assuming that this a setup you've seen. You have a .env.example that you then normally copy and replace with your own values. This is a very simple one. Okay, only 3 variables here. But normally, what you see in larger projects, you're going to see dozens of those. That can be annoying. One, setting up a new development environment can be annoying because you need to possibly generate those. And 2, you have to keep those variables a secret for production, right? So let's manage all that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start this with Varlock. In Varlock, we can bunx Varlock init here, okay? I'm using bun. You can use this with npm, pnpm, or have you. It will work with any of those, okay? So bunx Varlock init. What this is going to do is it's going to show you some messages here. Please review and update the new .env schema file. So it's going to generate a schema file based on your .env example file here, or if you have just a .env environmental file, that should work as well. So I'm going to look at this schema here, and this is pretty interesting here. So first off, it generates some stuff in here, and this is a schema. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the schema and what you can do here, but you see already some stuff. So you can define a type in here. You can define that some stuff is sensitive and detected. So it's giving you some helpful pointers in here. And in the past, I have done this and not deleted this, and I'm going to do this again. So, okay, really? Did you really read that? Because there's this, and I haven't deleted those. That's funny. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, save this, and then, okay, that has been generated. And it also deleted the .example that I had. Now, by default, what this means is that I have all of those variables, and these are default values for those variables. I don't need to have those default values. I could say I don't have any default values for that. And every new developer, when they start the new development environment, I should say, they will need to set those up. So for instance, if I set this here and I make this required, okay, this is now required. So my Google clients secrets are required, and I need to set it up. And the same thing on this one here, I'm making this required. So let's just change this, and this is required. There you go. And this is also required because I do need a database connection. If this was optional, I could say so. So for instance, I'm going to create a new one here. I'm going to say that this is optional, and my variable here is, let's say that this is test, okay? And I'm just gonna not give it a value, and it's optional, and this is not gonna fail, okay? The other thing that I could say here, as you saw the type in this one, I'm gonna give it a type, and I'm gonna say that this is Boolean. what is going to happen here is that we're going to generate TypeScript types to this path here, and I'm going to change the path in a bit. And it's going to generate types based on the type definition here, okay? Now, this is a Svelte application. Doesn't really matter which kind of application it is, but so far as Svelte applications, normally the code lives under src lib. There you go. That's where I'm gonna put this. But your framework of choice, you can do this in a different place. It doesn't really matter. The other thing that I need to say is because I'm using bun, it generates this bun.toml file here, where it's setting the environmental to false here. So bun is not managing the environmental files anymore. Varlock is, okay? So I generated this. I have this schema here, and I have default values in there, all right? So all I did so far is generate a schema for this project here. So I have a schema and I have default values, okay? And this is going to be checked in. Hopefully you're not gonna check in your secrets. That still should not happen, okay? But there are different ways to manage this. You can still use your .env files if you want for that. But personally, I prefer other ways of doing this. I am using OnePassword here. So Varlock in its documentation has some plugins here. There are several ways of doing this. I use OnePassword. I have a subscription for OnePassword. I know it's paid for. If you don't want to use that, I believe ProtonPass and Passbolt do a similar thing, and they are open source and free. I haven't used those, so I just checked to see if there were free options, and I believe there are. But I'm using OnePassword, and this demo here is going to be with OnePassword. So in order to use OnePassword, and the goal here is to use OnePassword to store all your environmental secrets. So I'm going to create a OnePassword vault to hold all my environmental variables. And I'm going to have one vault for my development environment and one vault for my production environment. And the goal for that is, if I have other people on my team, I can share my development vault with other people. And just by doing that, they don't have to set up anything else. And I can then have one vault with my production variables just used for my production deployment. And we're going to see that working in a second. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up OnePassword, the OnePassword plugin in here, and we're going to see this in action. So I'm going to come back to this. One thing we need to do is install that. Let me see if I have this one installed already. OnePassword. No, I have not. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ban install Varlock OnePassword plugin. So installing it. Then on top of my configuration, I'm going to remove this. I don't need that. I'm going to put this in here. So I'm using the plugin now. Okay. And what I need to do is I need to init OP for OnePassword. And we're going to possibly pass in a token. It's going to be my token. This is also an environmental variable. It's hard to say that. So allow. All right. So what this is doing here, this is going to initialize OnePassword. It might pass this environmental variable, and what this one is here, I'm gonna copy and paste this configuration. Okay, this is my OP token, and this token is going to be tied to a OnePassword service account. That service account, I'm going to show you that later, is going to have access to my production vault. And when this token is provided, this then is the token that is going to be used to access the service account, open the production vault, and have access to all my production environmental variables. And this is what I'm going to use to deploy this application in production. That's it. If this is not provided, we're going to use the local installed app in my computer for the, not env here, for the development environment. So I'm using my fingerprint or whatever methods of authentication to open the OnePassword app in my computer and feed the values into this application. Okay, that's what's going to happen. So we're going to see this in action. Now, I'm going to add one more configuration here, which is this one. This is going to set this app environmental variable to be my current environment. Normally, it's going to use development, production, or what have you, the full names. Personally, I'm just going to use the short terms of those. So my dev is going to be of this type here, either a dev or production. So it's an enumeration, right? So we can do those as well. And the only reason I'm doing this here is so that I have a short name for my vault. And I'm going to show you what that means. Okay. All of this is configured here so that I can start getting values from my OnePassword. But in order to do that, I need to tell this application here to get these values from someplace in my OnePassword. And how do I do that? Well, we do this through the op command. And this op command is, again, tied to this plugin here. So if you're using a different plugin, it's going to be a different command. And then I need to specify the path that I'm sending to retrieve these values. So the way this works is, I'm going to just do this, op. It's going to be a Varlock demo dev. And I'm going to get this from my database value and then from the database URL. Okay, so let's look at OnePassword now. And I have that set up on my OnePassword. This is not a OnePassword tutorial. I have my OnePassword here. So you can see I have those two vaults, Varlock demo dev and Varlock demo prod. Okay, and you can see I have those two items in here, auth and database. Okay, so Varlock demo dev matches this vault. Database matches this item, and within database I have this database URL in here. Okay, so that's how I'm retrieving this value. And for Google I have something similar, okay, which I'm gonna just copy and paste in here. And this is going to be, instead of database, this is going to be my auth. And in here I'm gonna copy this, paste this one, and copy this and paste that one. Okay, and you can see that I have the same here. And the goal of having these different items in here is just for organization. That's just how I would do this. So anything related to authentication, I would put it in here. If I had more database stuff, I could put it in there. And if I had other secrets or different kinds of configurations, I could create other items. You're not required to do it. You could have just a single one, but that's how I like to do it. Keep in mind that for OnePassword, you are going to give access to people based on the vault. So if they have access to this vault, they have access to all of those items regardless. So this here is really just for organization and not at all about access. So access is managed through this vault here. Okay, that's it. All right. We have all this set up here. We have all this configuration for OnePassword. Now I'm going to start this application here by running bun dev. And I'm going to reload this. And you're going to see that nothing is being displayed. So let me show you what this page is actually doing. So this is my default route in here. I am supposedly displaying this information in here. And if you look at this, I'm returning all of those values in there and retrieving from the environmental file, environmental variables. Okay. I don't know why this is telling me that. All right. I just needed to reload my Z editor here, and now everything is showing back again based off of this here. And if you're not familiar with SvelteKit, here's a 10-second tutorial about this. If you have a page.server, this that has a load function, this is going to load any data and return whatever you return here. Types are going to be generated. So you know that data here is the types of data is based off what has been returned from this function. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to go into SvelteKit today, but the goal here is just to say, okay, we're trying to retrieve those values from the environment configuration. And right now, this is not coming from anywhere. Why is it that? That's because we haven't hooked up the Varlock loading system or loading environmental variables into this application. And we're going to do that through a Vite plugin, because SvelteKit runs on top of Vite. If you're running other applications, say Next.js, it might be different, but a Vite application just needs a configuration in here that we need to install. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to not dev. I'm going to bun install Varlock Vite integration. That's it. Okay. I have that installed, and I'm going to then import this. So import, this is Varlock Vite plugin, and we're gonna load this here. Varlock Vite plugin. And if you are doing server-side rendering, which I am in this case. I just need to do server-side inject mode, set to resolve env. That's it, okay? This is the configuration that we needed. So I'm gonna start this application again, and it gave me this error back where no OnePassword plugin instances found. Let me see what this is. Oh, I know what it is. In the init OP here, I forgot to add the @ symbol. So you see already, because I added the @ now it's probably initializing the OnePassword plugin, and it's already asking me to give my touch ID so that we can then access that. So let's go and see what happened. Now database URL is telling me that this is an invalid URL, local DB. Okay, so great. The one thing here is that let's not use URL. Let's just say that this is a string. And let's reload this. What happened now? Detected leaked sensitive config. Okay, now it's detected leaked sensitive config Google client secret. So what's happening here? So we define that this is sensitive, okay? This cannot be displayed anywhere because it could be captured, and this is a problem, right? Now, because we are using this plugin, Varlock detects that we are trying to render a sensitive variable in the page, and that's a security issue, right? So what we can do here and what we should be doing is not doing this and not displaying this here. But before I do that, let me show you something different here, actually. Let's just come to the environmental. I'm gonna still display this, sorry. And I'm gonna remove the sensitive because I said that this is sensitive information, and it is. And if I remove this, now we can see everything be displayed in the page. So there you go, it's working, okay? This is my client ID, this is my secret, and my local DB. Now, let me show you this here. If I come to my OnePassword and I open auth, you can see that this value here is the one value that is being displayed here. And my secret is my very much secret. It's here, okay? Now, that's one thing. I removed this sensitive. I don't want to do that. This is still sensitive. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to return this from here. I'm going to return and remove this from here. Now the page works and it's not complaining about being sensitive. So this is giving you already some protection for you. The other part of this that I want you to appreciate, and I am appreciating, is that from now on, every time some new developer comes in, or if I'm creating a new work tree, I don't need to copy any files or share those files with anyone. I have my OnePassword setup here. We can use this and share with anyone in my development team, and the setup is easier as it goes. And also, if we need to refresh any tokens for whatever reason or add more variables, everybody is in sync with this one source of truth here. So that's pretty great. The other part I want to show you here quickly that I just glanced over is in here. And again, if you're not familiar with SvelteKit, in this file here, what we're doing is we're retrieving the environmental files using SvelteKit's way of doing things when retrieving environmental variables. So if you're not familiar with SvelteKit, again, that doesn't matter. The point here is that all of those are always strings here, okay? And if I come here and I grab that other one is test, this is also a string, even though we define this with an environmental file here that says that it's a Boolean, okay? Now, Varlock has a way of doing this that is a little bit more type safe, and we're gonna see that by doing this here. So we're gonna use Varlock's /env way of doing this, and I'm gonna just comment this out, and I'm gonna now do env dot database URL, and this is that, and let's just do this is test. It's going to be is test. And if I hover this, you're going to see that this is a Boolean or undefined because this is optional, but it's now a Boolean, right? And this is now a Boolean or undefined. And this is all coming from that generated file here. So this is a generated file. Do not add it directly. And this is generated by Varlock. And we can see that we have is test here as a Boolean. And that's it, okay? This is a more type safe and very developer-friendly way of accessing your environmental files. That's what I want to talk about this one. Now, finally, and still on this topic of data types, if you come here to the schema guides on the Varlock documentation, and you can find the, let me see, the type references. So you can see all the types that they have in here, okay? So for instance, I could say, and that's what I did here some time ago, that this is a string that has a mean length of 32, and it also starts with less. I could say that, okay? So if I come here to this string, let me see if I did this correctly. Yes, mean length, and we can to uppercase, it's going to do that for you, and starts with some strings. So I could do all of that with my strings. So there are a few more things that you can do with your types and your schema. So just check this. I'm not gonna go over all of that because that's not the point of this, but the point is actually to make sure you understand how practical having all of this is in here. Now, the final part that I'm going to mention here is how you're going to deploy this. And you see here so far that I'm accessing directly this specific vault, but I don't need to, right? Because I have my environmental variable here. What I can do is I can say that this is accessing app.env, okay? And let's do this for the other two as well. So let's access app.env. So now I'm going to concatenate whatever value comes from this app.env here, and then I'm gonna either access varlock-demo-dev or prod, depending on whatever environmental I'm using. By default, this is development, but if I set this to prod, I'm gonna access production values, okay? So let's just see production values in here locally. Come back to my page. Your config screen invalid. Let me see what I missed here. Okay. Oh, that's great, actually. So it said that I could not authenticate with OnePassword. Why is that? Because I said that I can only use the app to authenticate for my development environment. So if I just do this and set to true, now I should be able to see my production. So this is now saying production DB, and this is my production client ID, okay? I don't want to do this. What I want to do is access the production vault only through my service account, which is going to be you using this OP token here, okay? There's nothing preventing you from changing this configuration here, but if you're not giving access to your coworkers or people that don't have access to the production vault, then they cannot access the production vault regardless, right? So changing this to true here, if you don't have access to that vault, it's not gonna do anything, but it's just a good utility to have in this case. Now, let's go and see this in production, okay? I'm going to deploy this now. So I'm gonna grab this Varlock demo here. I'm gonna import this, and it needs a couple of environmental variables, right? So what we do need to do is we're gonna have to set this app.env to be production, so prod, and I'm going to have to set this OP token to my OnePassword service account. All right, I'm gonna paste the token in here, okay? And this is all that I need to do. From here, when I deploy this, we know that it's production, so it's gonna try to access the production vault, and we have access to that production vault through this token. If I have many other environmental variables, as one normally does for a bigger project, I would not need to set this up. So that's one point that I want to emphasize. This makes this process way easier. So I'm going to click on deploy here. It's going to take some time to deploy, not a lot. This should be fast. So let's see this running here. All right, so it took a few seconds. It deployed. You might be seeing the Google client secret here, and I'm going to show you why. The reason being here is that when I push this code, I actually removed the sensitive keyword from here, so it's not sensitive. That's fine. I don't have any sensitive information in here, but you can see it in action. And the point being here is that it made the process of deploying this way easier. Again, I'll repeat, like in here, I only have a few variables. If I had more, this would be way more complicated to do. It would take way more time to do. But that's it. That's what I wanted to show. I wanted to mention how Varlock works, and this is how I've been using it for the past few weeks. So let me know what you think. Thanks.